But first, a Southwest Florida sheriff is making it clear deputies are bound to stop a fellow officer if they see something going wrong with use of force. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Patrick Nolan. Jane Monreal has the night off. The Collier County Sheriff put out a statement today reminding the public that deputies not only have a duty to address our bad behavior when it happens, but they also have to do that for each other. 4 in Your Corner's Rochelle ALLEYNE spoke with a former police officer and a forensic study specialist about an officer's duty to intervene.
Is that a situation where a fellow officer should have intervened? Was that a clear duty to intervene case right there?
They should have got up and snatched Chauvin off of him but that's their job. And they know that.
When it comes to a law enforcement officer's duty to intervene, FGCU forensic expert and former police officer Dave Thomas says the rules are pretty clear-cut, especially in a case like George Floyd's.
The statute and the law quite simply says when a person's under control, you stop.
He says it's law enforcement's job to call each other out on excessive use of force and physically intervene if need be, not the public's job, which a lawyer for one of the officers involved in Floyd's case recently suggested on CNN.
If all of these people say, why didn't my client intercede? Well, if the public is there and they're so in an uproar about this, they didn't intercede either.
It's also important to note that a lot of departments already have these kinds of rules in place, including the Collier County Sheriff's Office, who reminded the public of that today. Thomas says it's clear that in the case of the Minneapolis police officers involved in Floyd's arrest, the lack of intervention was learned behavior.
When I look at that, and I look at the picture of Chauvin on Mr. Floyd's neck, what I see an issue where the culture of that organization has allowed that to happen because he's very comfortable.
Though this doesn't appear to be the case for Mr. Floyd, Thomas also says excessive use of force typically happens after someone puts up a fight. He says that adrenaline rush mixed with sporadic required trainings after the academy can cause some officers to forget what they learned in the heat of the moment and rely on excessive techniques.
I go on the street and I may not have to use my hands or a baton or a taser for a year. So I get into an altercation. What I learned in the academy is gone.
Now, more perspective for you now coming from Rochelle, because duty to intervene is a term you've reported on before, because before you came here, you were reporting in Buffalo, New York, and you did several stories on a former officer who says she was fired for actually doing this.
That's right, Patrick, I did. Her name is Collier Horn, and she's a former Buffalo Police Department officer. I did several stories with her, and she tells me back in 2008, she was fired from that department after stopping her partner from choking a handcuffed man that they already had in their custody. Her partner was white and the man they had arrested was black. In 2018, her former partner, Greg Kiwakowski, was sentenced to serve time in federal prison for using unnecessary force against 4 teens that he already had arrested and had been detained by other officers. I asked Thomas how law enforcement officers can effectively enforce rules to weed out bad apples like that person. And he says the only way that they can do that is if there's some type of oversight at a state or federal level.
So in this instance, the officer is required to do it. And if I don't do it, I'm losing my job. So you can always blame it. You have something else to blame it on. That's the only way it happens, because I will tell you that in her instance, what she was viewed as a rat.
Now, since 2016, Collier Horn has been working to pass something called Carriel's Law that would enforce the concept of duty to intervene at a state level in New York State. And it would also protect officers like her who speak out about mistreatment that they see while on the job.